Hey guys, welcome back. It's Jen with Happy Humble Home, and on today's episode we're going to be talking about these little guys, these little dandelions. So before we jump into the video about the dandelions, if you're new to the channel, welcome, and make sure that you go subscribe and ring that little bell so you're notified of all the videos that we upload here on Happy Humble Home. Do anything from homeschooling stuff to homesteading to kitchen to reviews, kind of a plethora of stuff on the video, to backpacking. So make sure you go click that subscribe button. If you haven't already, go do that now, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the video about our beautiful little dandelions. There's a couple little dandelions here. There's one over there next to it, so we're gonna get those done. Don't really have, like, all these that I'm growing, like, they really, or that I'm digging up rather, they don't really have a lot of roots necessarily, but I'm going to show y'all what to do with the leaves, the stem, the leaves, flowers, and roots. I definitely have dug some up in the past that have a little bit more mature roots than these, but that's okay. Like, that one's got a pretty long taproot on it, and this one's got a pretty good size taproot as well. So, I mean, so far just in my backyard, I've gotten about 5 or 6 little dandelions. So I'm going to show y'all how we're going to use all of these. And I've still got a few more to dig up, but I'm going to show y'all what we're going to do with the flower, the leaves, and the roots. Alright guys, so you can see here that I didn't grab just a whole lot just because some of them were not very mature plants by any means as far as the taproot system goes or whatnot. Some of these I've dug up just because I wanted the taproot for that particular type, because some really didn't have any blooms on them, but they had a nice taproot. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just kind of twist off these tops here and then put them in a little jar, and the flower part I'm going to use for tea. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to pull these little, just going to twist these off like that and stick them in my little jar. I'm only going to use the ones that are bloomed. I'm not going to, I've got some that are already starting to kind of go to seed. So those I will probably just spread back in my yard and maybe hope that next year I can get some nice thick blooms or some good mature plants. Hopefully, since I do want to use the roots. One of these had a really good root system, and he was in my flower bed, and I thought I had dug down deep enough, and when I went to pull it up, I actually broke the taproot. So I was like, well, I was not very excited about that because he was going to be a really good beefy root, but it's alright. That's how it goes sometimes, right? So I'm just going to give these a good little rinse. And then since I don't really have that many blossoms or flowers, I'm really just going to rinse these out real good, and then I'm just going to fill up the entire jar with hot water once I rinse them good. And then that way I'm just going to let these seep, and then we'll have some dandelion tea that I will probably take and split it up into, whenever I make regular black tea just for the kids to drink, that I'll probably add a little bit of dandelion to it. And since dandelion root or dandelion tea is such a bitter tea anyways, I'm probably not going to add a whole lot because I'm going to have to mask it with the regular black tea. So I won't be putting in a whole lot, but it'll at least be a way to use the flowers. Or if you're like me, I can take just dandelion root straight or the petals is not near as bitter as the root. So hopefully I'll be able to use maybe like half of this jar in a gallon, or maybe the full thing. I'll just kind of have to play around with it and see how much I can put in with other teas before it gets too bitter tasting. But that's what we're gonna go do with these. And then sorry y'all. So we're gonna clean it off. The leaves are really good, and as I clean them off, I'm just gonna set them on our dehydrator tray over here. You can hear the water behind me starting to boil, but we're just gonna sit here and work on cleaning these up for it. Now we're just gonna get a lid. What we're gonna do with our dandelion flowers. Okay, so we have our 2 trays here of dandelion leaves, and again, it would probably be better if you dried these off just a little bit more before you put them in the dehydrator, so it wouldn't have to take as long. But I'm just gonna take a hand towel and kind of dab them real quick first, but that's all right, y'all. I forgot about that step until I started laying them out. Again, it helps them dry a little faster is all. It's not really. We're gonna set my Nesco dehydrator to 95 because that's what it says for herbs and spices. And then now we're just gonna plug it up, and I'll show y'all what we're gonna do with that after it gets done. There's this little like protecting. It kind of protects where the root starts from the flower tip. So we're just gonna kind of cut right above that, and then that way we get a nice clean cut. And then we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna scrub them really good with like a vegetable brush once we get these pieces off. And then these, once you're done, unlike this one, you can see this was the one that was growing in my flower bed, and you can see I was really upset that I cut the taproot, but you can see where this was a much more mature plant and it had to grow off of it, so I can get a much better root. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do is like I'm gonna scrub them really good with a brush, and then I forgot about this and it's a lot quicker, is I'm just gonna take a spoon and just kind of get off. You can see where I'm just gonna kind of get off all the little outside layer there. You can do this a lot with ginger. It's an easy way to get off the outside of the ginger root. So that's kind of what I'm gonna do. You can also take a little like peeler if you want to, or just a thin knife, and then you're just kind of getting off that very outside layer to be left with, for the most part, a pretty nice and clean root, because we are gonna roast these. You can also use like a little potato peeler. Okay guys, so it's been about 36 hours or so since I harvested the dandelion from the yard, and I let the tea just kind of sit in a jar for probably like overnight, and then just the next day I strained off the flowers, and then we're left with this little bit of tea. Again, I made a small batch. But with the dandelion tea, like I said, I can either use it for hot tea, I can add it into just like some basic black tea for the kids, or you can also use it for dandelion jelly. And then also for the leaves, we went ahead and dehydrated them. These I let dehydrate for about 6 hours or so. You could probably do 6 to 8 hours probably. And now we're just gonna go ahead and pulse these up into like a little fine powder that again I will add to soups or sauces, that kind of thing, just to add a little bit of extra nutrients in with the soup or sauce and all. And again, we dehydrated these at about 95 degrees for, like I said, these were 6 hours roughly, so they don't take real long. And then we're just gonna pulse these up real quick. You can always, this is just a little extra grinder that I have that I use to grind up any spices. You can also use a mortar and pestle. That would probably be easy with sense, depending on how much you have. And then I will just pour these over into little containers. Again, with the leaves, you can eat them like fresh greens. You can eat them with your salads or on anything that you would use fresh greens in. Again, since it is dandelion, they do have a little bit more of a bitter taste, so just keep that in mind when you are using dandelion in recipes. Okay, so now it's time to the roots. It's really hard to see, but y'all know I didn't get a lot of roots off of it. So I just chopped these up and I let them sit on my counter for about a day and a half to 2 days, I guess. So that way they could dry out more before I roast them. Because I'm going to roast them in the oven at 350 for about 35 to 40 minutes. If you wanted to go ahead and do this all the same day that you forage them, clean them up, and that whole process, you could go ahead and put them in your oven at about 150 or 170 and let it set for a couple hours just to help dry it out faster, and then go into the roasting process, or just leave them out on the counter for a couple days and you see how well they dried up. So that's what I did. You could also throw them in a dehydrator, but I didn't want to throw the roots in there while I was trying to dehydrate the leaves and then put more moisture than what I needed in there. So that's why we're doing it this way. Once those get done, I'm going to show you what we're going to do with the rest of the dandelion. So like I said, we didn't have very many roots to actually roast, but here's a small batch again. You can see here where I've roasted them up at 350 for about 35 to 40 minutes, and y'all, they actually smell really good. So now we're just gonna grind them up and then we'll put them in a little separate container. So that wraps up being able to forage the dandelions, what you can do with their flowers, their leaves, and their roots. Kind of gives you a couple options that you can do with each part of the plant. And as always, if y'all have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comment section down below, and I will check in with y'all later.